Duane and Peter Morwood. Good to be here. Yes. Now, just a few moments ago, I was told that during their clash this morning, someone asked them why are they here.
Because we are fans.
What function do you serve at a Discworld convention, was the question. We talk, we give excellent writers' workshop, and we distract some of the attention from Terry so that he can actually go to the toilet undisturbed.
I think originally when we came to our first Discworld Con because we were fans. I mean,
that was back in Manchester. You know, we had to work our way through the dinosaurs to get there.
yeah, we are AFPers of the ancient day, and you know, we came because, of course, we would go to a convention for one of our oldest friends in the British Spanish community. Once upon a time, Terry, you know, was not
just another writer.
Terry was just another writer. Once upon a time, Terry was just another part.
He was not Sir Terence de Pratchett, Lord of Upper Ankh-Morpork.
As we've seen. And Terry was a guy that you could bump into in the bar with any number of other writers on a quiet evening and sit and have a long talk with.
He was the chap we suggested to, it was, I think, the first Octocon that he would make a rather good guest and not too expensive.
Yeah.
That's changed.
So, but there it comes. And so we remain Discworld fans. I mean, you know, when you know a good thing, you see a good thing, you can stick with it.
Discworld books are the only ones I buy in hardback because the paperback ones just can't stand the strain. Apart from those, the hardback ones tend to float better if you drop them in the tub. But, but it is true, with the exception of Diane's hardbacks, which I don't actually buy, I get freebies. I will only ever buy Discworld hardbacks because Mort, for example, turned into a loose leaf folder at about the 18th reading. And I think possibly having the cat pee on it didn't help. But
yeah, well, it wasn't her fault.
Since then, I've been buying hardbacks, and I actually managed to track down a first edition hardback of The Light Fantastic, which does not leave the house, because I've checked what it's worth.
Five figures?
Five. Colin says medium 5. He asked me, was it second hand? I said, no, what didn't you? And he said, where? I said, not telling you.
Yeah. Well, Colin's an old friend too. I mean, you know, when you have a chance to sit and chat with these people, as it was, you know, 15 or 20 years ago, before their time became so valuable, you had to book it in 2 weeks in advance. These guys were part of British fantasy fandom. And
So
we were always part of
with
that.
the H.P. Lovecraft Holiday Fun Club?
I say nothing about that.
Well, Butlins for beginners.
But, you know, Terry's a friend. And when the opportunity came up, what would have been the second convention?
It was the second convention.
And we had already been teaching workshops elsewhere.
The workshop that took place at the second Discworld convention, which was in the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool, was the only proper writer's workshop. The round robin, each person writes something, everyone else reads it, then we all critique. That was the first and only time we've done a proper writer's workshop, because we saw nothing of that convention. Except for one lady who was rather memorable, who, when her work was critiqued, threw herself back from the desk, crying, "You're murdering my babies, I can't stand it," and then ran away, and we never saw her again.
Yeah, well,
after that we decided that we were going to have a simplified version.
She was unclear on the concept. She was one of those people who is writing, quote unquote, only for pleasure.
To be praised.
To be praised. To be praised. That was the trouble. Because she was writing for pleasure, it said here, but she was writing for the kind of pleasure that involves you telling her how wonderful her stuff was, whether it was or not. And that was...
What would now be called
fanfic? Profit, that can't happen.
Well, first of all, it's not going to happen when you're working for profit anyway, because the first thing you hear from your editor is, now I have some notes. And whether you're working television or books, that is now just what you get used to. That you're part of a very large committee. You are maybe, at the pros end, the most important part of the committee, or the one they are depending upon to produce the content. But a lot of other people are going to have input over the time that you're working with that particular chunk of work. And you have to get used to it. If you cannot bear the concept that some other human being might suggest that you need to change your adverbs occasionally, then this is not the job for you. You need to be doing something else.
Well, the business that just happened to me was I've been working for about 18 months on a sort of fantasy secret agency piratey historical thing featuring Colonel Blood and Captain Henry Morgan and various other folks. And I handed it in to my agent in New York, and he said, right, you'll have to rewrite from page 1 because your prose is excessively chatty. It's great for you reciting the story in the pub over a pint, but it's not what's going to sell. So after a couple of days of running around breaking things, I'm back to page 1.
You know.
But this is what you do. If you're a pro, you have to accept criticism. You can't shriek, "Oh no, you're killing my babies," and run away.
Yeah. And
unless you want to just concentrate on writing fanfic, in which case you get a small clique of friends who can sort of pat your back and tell you it's all right.
I have very little time for
I'm afraid the bank manager wants more than that.
I have very little time for the concept of beta readers.
David Gemmell used to swear
I
by
know,
it.
now that's what he did, but that was his thing. For me, I come of a slightly older generation of writers where, you have a beta reader, it's called your editor.
Or your agent, as the case may be.
Well, even then, your agent often did not fulfill that function. Your beta reader was your editor, and your editor paid or was being paid to be in that position, and was the only person qualified to tell you.
Well, it's actually in the PDF about the Writers' Workshop, where we've got a few quotations from serious experts, and there's a list of instructions from Robert Heinlein, no less, one of which is do not rewrite except to editorial instruction.
Yeah.
In other words, don't do anything unless the person who is going to be paying you tells you to do it. By and large, the function of the editor is to know how best to package and sell your book. Colin will almost certainly be talking about this, because he's been editing Terry and various other people well, he's been agenting, but the agent is the first filter, regardless of what Diane just said, because if the agent does not think that what is going to be handed over to the editor is going to get any further than the desk, then it's that agent's business to tell the writer to tweak it so that it will get further. My New York agent says as well that the other function of an agent is to be the writer's official bastard.
Yes.
Because that way you can be nice. While the agent is putting in the great white shark dentures and preparing to sink them into someone's backside. Because the agent makes their income from a percentage of what you make, so it's in their vested interest to get the maximum amount of money. And this is what Don does. It's very funny, actually, that Don, until he grew a nice little silvery beard, looked rather like a choir boy.
He did,
and unfortunately, my ex-UK agent looked like a vicar. And they'd all read the tabloid headlines. The vicar and the choir boy are speaking quietly to Peter Morwood in the corner.
Help.